Thank you very much. Thanks to your cherished viewers and to my constituents, the good people of Timpani. I say good morning to all, and good morning to your good self, good morning to my younger brother, Sammy, that I've seen for a while now. He told me he had gone a hole. Anyway, you know, I want to tackle this issue from a certain perspective.
You know that.
Of course. I want to tackle this from three perspectives. Samson, in the last 16 years, from the statistical proclamation you did declare with alacrity in the last few minutes, I have no doubt in my mind that if the pass mark for corruption perception in any country were 50%, all governments that you adumbrated recently would have failed. That's a statement of fact. If the pass mark were 50%, then all the government from Mills through Mahama to Nana would have failed. If we just put it at the basic 50%. So what it tells you is that there's a systemic failure. And so we should not pontificate holiness and associate it with any individual character, thinking the person will be a panacea to the solution of all the problems pertaining to corruption in Ghana. That I want to say it without equivocation.
But you cannot say that should not be said. You cannot say that should not be said. Wait, hold on just a second. You cannot say that should not be said for President Akufo-Addo, whose campaign, the major message was that we had money, but the money was being wasted due to corruption, and he was coming to fix that. See, if you allow me, I'm going to allow you. Please go ahead.
I'll tackle all that.
Yes, go ahead.
You see, I am stating this because my brother made his submission, and you see that I was quite all through.
That's true.
You know, we shouldn't create the impression that there is an individual out there who is coming to be that angel that will take us to the promised land without the aid, assistance of all of us. It is impossible for that individual sitting at the top there to be able to manage every facet of society in manners that corruption will not fester. So it is the duty of state institutions, individuals, the public, all of us to collaborate to fight this. But as I stated in my preliminary submission, if we took the past mark to be 50%, we're going to have a situation where, unfortunately for us, none of those governments will pass the test.
Very sad.
That's very sad. And that's what we should be looking at, rather than individual share of blame and etc. We should ask ourselves, what is the reason why we are not performing well? And right now, for 4 years running, we have stagnated, isn't it? We are at 43. We haven't improved, we haven't deteriorated. If we take the perception index that has been churned out there to be anything to go by. So the point I'm making is that every government in the history of this country has in one way or the other tried to fight the menace and canker of corruption. People have taken it in different trends. And something, believe you me, if you look at the statutory provisions that we have actually enacted during the regime of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, well implemented, the fight against corruption would have been taken to another level. In fact, to the skies. Because you've stated, I recall that I was privileged to be Deputy Attorney General at the time we were debating the RTI and all that. And I remember one of my senior colleagues on the floor, the Honorable K.T. Amon, he quoted extensively from Britain and one of the former prime ministers and stated that if there's any law that we're going to regret after passing it was going to be RTI. You know how long...
He said there will not be secret in government.
Absolutely.
I don't know what he wants.
I don't know exactly. But you see, governments in the past had done everything to pass this. It never ever came to fruition. He came, took the bull by the horn, pushed this through, Parliament passed it, and we know what that has been able to do for us as we speak. A number of your colleagues, including your good self, have been able to probe into certain government institutions under the provisions of RTI to be able to get information very relevant for public consumption and to fight corruption. That's a commendable effort. But we seem to gloss over it because we think that it is just a law that we have made and that the characters to implement it will be another thing. Yes, I agree. But that is a very, very significant step that one will have to take. Again,
on the RTI
check this
law,
for me.
On the RTI law, one factual point that must never be lost is that in 2016, before Parliament would wind up, the RTI law was ready, cooked for passage. Doa Jaho was superintending the process day by day, and the NPP decided that they would not support the passage. And it was clear. Chairman Sabonso didn't hide the reason they were not supporting it. That the government was in the dying days of its regime, and that they will not help it to pass it. When the NPP come, they will pass it. So it would have been passed in 2016.
That's what I'm saying. The government had an opportunity in 8 years to have passed it earlier.
That's correct.
That's the most significant thing to
in fact,
do. They had an opportunity to have passed it earlier.
On the occasion when it could have been passed,
yes,
the NDC didn't have the sufficient numbers in the House.
Yes, and why didn't they?
Because
if they had intended to pass it, they would have galvanized the majority with a 3-line whip to come over and then pass it. Then they take the credit.
My point is that your side was there and could have made the numbers for the passage, and they decided that they won't agree.
Yes, but even without that side, their side alone could have passed it. What about that? Why do you push it to the minority at the time when the majority had the numbers to be able to pass it? I'm saying that under His Excellency Nana Ado's first term, the Right to Information Act was passed.
That's correct.
And that credit will have to go to him.
Yes.
Like it or you do not. Again, there are other provisions or laws that were enacted in that regime in the first term of Nana Ado, to which I was privileged to be a member. One, if you look at the Whistleblowers Act, and then you look at the Witness Protection Act.
Whistleblowers Act is 2006.
2006. I mean, but we did some amendments. And then again, if you look at the Witness Protection, we enacted it under the first term of Nana Ado's government. And then the OSP. Let me tell you this, do a cross-check, and you are a person I hold in high esteem. Do a cross-check. There has never been in the history of Ghana any time when sitting government officials have been subjected to accountability by a state institution like now. Never ever. I've done all the checks.
That's fact.
Yes, it's a factual statement. If you look at what the OSP is doing now to sitting public heads and institutions, it has never ever happened.
Perhaps with the exception of some military regimes.
Yes, I'm talking about the civilian government. Never ever. And when I did my check, I realized that the numbers are by day increasing at frightening levels. The people who have been reported to Office of Special Prosecutor for investigations and prosecutions at various stages, we have the numbers in frightening levels. And what does that tell you? It vindicates the very purpose for which the office was set up. Because if you look at the memorandum that accompanied the bill to Parliament, one of the cardinal principles was that governance experts and think tanks had actually indicated that one of our problems is the will of the Attorney General to be able to put one of his own into the dock for prosecution. Over the years from 1992.
A case attorneys general admit.
Absolutely. They themselves admit. You go to sit in cabinet with colleagues, something comes up about it, human as we are, you are most likely to lean towards protecting the person. So it was as a result of this that the Office of Special Prosecutor was set up. And if you look at what my brother Kisi is doing now, look at the number. I mean, Samuel Jeffrey spoke about the former head of, I think...
Bost?
No, not Bost. Public Procurement Authority.
Yes.
He's being prosecuted as we speak. And you are aware.
Yes,
I mean, the Special Prosecutor even updated the public as to how far they have gone. There are some cases that Special Prosecutor has investigated and then found that they are not within his ambit and control, and therefore they've decided that they were not going to proceed with it. You know, I remember debating with my good friend Martin Kpemka on another platform about the former Minister of State at Finance.
Yeah.
You know, we debated this issue, and the Office of a Special Prosecutor came out to say that what he did amounted to influence peddling. It was not within the ambit of corruption, strictly speaking, as defined by the Office of Special Prosecutor. And therefore, it decided that if the Attorney General was interested, it could go ahead to do it. And that was within the law that he was interpreting. And you could agree or not agree with him, because Martin was saying that, look, they should have put that case before court to test the...
So what's the point, Kpemka?
The point I'm trying to make...
In the midst of all of this...
The point I'm trying to make is that there have been efforts to fight corruption by the government deliberately, through statutory provisions, through enactment of laws. Through enactment of laws. But we find that we are either stagnating or deteriorating. And I'm saying that we have to diagnose what are the basic causes and principles underlying the fact that we have all the beautiful laws that we have promulgated over time and period, and yet we are unable to reduce it to the barest minimum. And I say so because, you see, our society itself is structured in a manner that if care is not taken, public officers are likely to run themselves into corrupt practices. And I say this again, Samson.
In Singapore,
let me give you one example.
In Singapore, the transport minister is involved in a $119,000 corruption scandal. A gift given to him, including air tickets, business class tickets, and the rest. He has resigned. He's resigned as a minister. He's resigned as an MP. Here we are in Ghana. A minister can boast of in excess of $1 million in their bedroom, and the president will issue a statement saying that she'll be exonerated.
No, but you see, the point is that it is investigations that will prove the guilt or otherwise of a person. And Samson, you know that if you allege, you prove it. And the fact is, have we criminalized it? If as a nation we've realized that a vacuum has been created and people are exploiting it, let's criminalize it specifically, that you cannot have a certain amount of money in your bedroom. Once you haven't criminalized it, and you find that money in the person's bedroom, it is no offense by the Constitution if the person's money even is in trillions, except where you can directly link that particular wealth that was acquired the person to a corrupt act of that particular person, then you can subject the person to scrutiny. And remember that
the import of my question, sir,
yes,
is this, that don't you think the conduct of the leaders is part of the reason why many major anti-corruption laws have been passed, and yet we are unable to make a dent in the fight? He mentioned the bust issue. That man had to resign or somehow left the place. He's in parliament. Not too long ago, he was heard on radio tape saying that he has kept dollars seeking to bribe delegates, and that he will pay more than 10,000 if his opponents paid more than that. He will pay more than 20,000 if his opponents paid more than that per delegate. Not a single person within the party has condemned that conduct.
The point is, again, that is an intent to bribe. Okay? It's an intent to bribe, clearly from that statement. And again, we have statutory institutions responsible for such cases, that you can invite the person. And attempt to bribe is as good as bribing, if you can establish it in any competent court. And remember that the punishments are virtually the same. So what I'm seeking to say is that if no person or group of persons have come out to speak against it, that doesn't mean that anybody is complicit in it. What it only means is that institutions that are supposed to take action ought to have acted. Remember that there was one in the Ashanti region, a nominee MCE or so. Yeah, he's currently being prosecuted. Yeah. Yes, because it is alleged that he bribed some people to vote for him.
They belong to groups. Elsewhere, they'll be disowned. They'll be forced to resign just by their comments. You don't think that's
the point? The point sometimes is that, you see, I have a problem, and one of the problems I have with some of these things is prejudice. When you take certain actions that prejudice the outcome, and you are likely to have condemned the person before hearing him, what if you rather allow that the institutions go in and then do the investigations, they prosecute, they get or secure conviction, then you say that, look, that conduct which has now been proven is unconscionable, unacceptable, and therefore we condemn it in no uncertain terms. But if you just hear any piece of information, you jump into conclusion, and in the end, the person is prosecuted and vindicated, what happens? You have destroyed the person's image and reputation anyway. So we shouldn't be fast at drawing conclusions. You see, I agree, Samson, it is only those who pretend or behave like ostriches who will say that corruption does not exist in the country. I will not be party to that. It does exist. But what do we do? President Kufuor stated that it existed at the time of Adam. He stated that. President Mills acknowledged the impact of corruption in our society. President Mahama did. President Rawlings did. President Nanado has done so. All of us collectively have acknowledged that one of the things that are eating into the very fabric of our society and destroying us to the core is corruption. But we are not improving. Why?
President Mahama, when one of his ministers, spoke about an intention which some people said was even for a joke, of making $1 million. She was sacked. That's the difference people are pointing to.
No. You see, I want to state this to you. That was an intent that she actually expressed, and then she was sacked. But have you aggregated that against the backdrop of other bigger things that happened during that regime that went unpunished too? You have to aggregate it against that. And that is why I wanted Sami to be present, and I would have pointed out to him. You see, for me, we should accept this as an endemic problem that all of us collectively need to come together to fight. Because there are no angels, and especially in the past, the leadership that people have exhibited and all that, we've seen what they are capable of and what they are not capable of. And so, if we are talking about the issue of corruption, we have to, do a national debate. Let me
go to my guest.
Maybe a last one.
Yes.
I was trying to make a point earlier, and then you distracted me a bit, and I want to just reiterate that before I hang my gloves. When you are a member of parliament, or a deputy minister, or a minister, or a CEO, or a deputy CEO, you go to any place, party foot soldiers come. They line up, and they start, when people are celebrating their birthdays, monitor Facebook. There are some CEOs or deputy CEOs, when they are celebrating their birthdays, their wishes are more than 1 million. Those people are said to be very generous and very helpful. But mind you, some of those pieces of generosity exhibited against the backdrop of the person's genuine income cannot be explained. But these are, it's factual. It cannot be explained. The person cannot justify the expenditure. And yet, the foot soldiers will hail such a person. The other one, who by virtue of principle or some kind of thing is not generous enough to them, who probably is living on the salary, is not able to manipulate anything, he's called names. And they call for the person's removal and all that. So again, our society itself, by virtue of the structure, conduct of the individuals and persons, we promote it deliberately. And then we seek to say again, institutions to fight it. It becomes very difficult.